really bad understanding, then I can just have a good understanding and then I can do it, but it doesn't work like
Chiedi
that.
a qualunque persona, morirai o no? Qual è la risposta? Morirai o no? Quando? Non lo so, se uno è un po' corretto. Ma questo non lo so include il giorno di oggi? No. Ma come? Non dire queste cose, tocca ferro, no, no. Non è che non può essere. Okay? E noi viviamo
We
come se
we
fossimo
live as if we
immortali
were immortal
dentro della nostra mortalità.
inside our
Ma
mortality.
questa è un'abitudine
But this is a
che noi
habit
abbiamo
that
creato
we
per
created
tante ragioni,
for many
fino a
reasons,
tante altre abitudini. No?
up to many other
E una delle
habits.
cose che io mi sono
And one of the
accorto
things that I
ieri,
realized
sentivo qualcuno parlare che mi ha
yesterday, I
fatto
was
riflettere.
hearing someone
Quando
talking that
stiamo
made me
arrivando in
reflect.
Italia,
When I write in Italy,
le prime volte, non sto
the
dicendo
first time,
esattamente quando, non
I won't
preciso,
say the exact
ma
time,
credo
a
nel
year, but I
2005,
think it was
più o meno in
about
quegli anni lì,
the
quando
2005
cominciato a stare più tempo qui.
when I started to
Mi sono
be
accorto di
spend
una
more
cosa,
time here. I realized one thing,
che
that
non era
it,
bello,
it wasn't
non era
nice,
cool,
it wasn't cool,
non essere occupato.
not being
Quindi
occupied,
se vuoi essere
busy.
qualcuno, devi
So
essere
if
occupato.
you want to be someone,
Se
then
hai
you have to
tempo
be
a
busy.
disposizione vuol dire che
If
non
you
hai
have
fretta
time
di
in your
niente.
hands, then
Vuol
it
dire che
means that
non
you
hai
have nothing to
nessuno
do,
bisogno di
that you
te, che
have
il mondo
that
ha
no
bisogno
one
di
needs
te,
you, that the
che
world
adesso
doesn't
non c'è
need you,
niente, che tu
that
non hai
in
nulla da
reality
fare.
that
Quindi è un
you have
segno
nothing
di
to do. So it's a sign
sconfitta.
of failure, defeat.
Mi ricordo una volta una
I
storia
remember
reale che
once,
viene racconta
for
da un
real story
brasiliano.
that
Un
is
brasiliano,
told about a
un
Brazilian
imprenditore, un degli uomini più ricchi del
entrepreneur, one
Brasile,
of the richest men in
che
Brazil,
si va a trovare con un appuntamento insieme con uno dei uomini più
that
ricchi
meets
dell'America.
with one of
Questa
the
volta
most
capiterà
rich
di
men
vederci più
in
volte.
America. I don't
Quando
remember
sta
the
questo
names, that don't
incontro,
matter, but the
lui,
point is that they meet
hanno lì un paio d'ore,
and
parlano insieme,
they stay there a couple of hours,
chiacchiere
they
uno con
talk,
l'altro, eccetera. E finito
they like
dicono,
each
vogliamo
other,
rincontrarci?
and at the
Sì,
end they
sì.
say, okay, do we want to see each other
Lui
again?
prima
Yes,
prende
yes,
via la
sure.
sua agenda,
And
comincia a
then the
dire,
first
no,
takes the
facciamo
agenda.
questo in
No, here
America,
I'm in
questo in Milano, questo in
Paris, here I'm
Milano.
Tokyo.
Ok, guarda,
Um,
questo periodo qua io
Look,
potrei.
this period I
Va,
can be
e
there.
allora
So
dice,
the other
ti posso far vedere che cosa vuol dire essere veramente ricco?
is to
Con la
be
mia agenda
really
vuota.
rich. Look, my agenda is
Faccio
empty.
quello che voglio
I
quando
do
voglio.
what I want when I want.
Ok?
Okay?
Perché alla fine dei
Because at the
conti,
end,
al di là di questo, qual è una delle risorse più preziose che ci abbiamo nella vita?
what is one of the most precious
La vita
resources
stessa.
that we have in life? Life itself.
Che il tempo poi il tempo è lo
Time
scorrere della vita,
is
però è
the
la vita
flowing
stessa.
of life, but it's life
Ogni
itself.
incontro, ogni
Every
ascolto, ogni
meeting,
pensiero, ogni
every
parola, eccetera,
hearing,
eccetera.
word,
E quando sono
and
arrivato in
so on.
Italia dopo
And
un
when I
po', io
got
mi
in
sono
Italy after a
accorto
while,
che
I
non era
realized that
bello
it
dire che hai
wasn't
tempo.
cool to have time.
C'è questa
There is
era,
like
mi sono
I
sentito in
felt
questa sorta di vortice,
as if I was in
di
a sort of
influenza, di dover
vortex
correre,
influence of having to speed
di
up,
fare le cose con fretta.
having to do things in a hurry.
E io ho avuto la grande
And I had the
fortuna
great
di
luck
passare tanti
of
anni in un
spending many
ambiente molto
years in a
diverso,
context that was very different,
dove c'era
where
la calma,
there would be calm,
c'era il ritmo,
rhythm.
no? Io mi ricordo
I
vivevo con uno
remember
dei miei
living
maestri,
with one
stavo a
of my
Gallappola,
masters, Galapala.
tutti i giorni si
Every
svegliava alle
day
3 del
he
mattino,
was
faceva
getting
6
up
ore
at
di,
3 in the
ore di
morning,
meditazione,
doing
dalle
3
3 alle
hours of
6,
meditation from 3 to
faceva
6.
colazione,
Then he would have
io
breakfast.
facevo colazione con
Often I
lui,
would
poi
have
andava a
breakfast with
lavorare,
him.
dava
Then he would
conferenze,
start
ha fatto di tutto e di più,
working
ha
for the
fatto dalla
monastery. Will work a
manifestazione dei
lot
templi
for that,
all'amministrazione, ha fatto
from
tantissimo.
administration to
Andava a lavorare più o
construction.
meno dalle 7 del
And then he was
mattino fino
working
alle
from
5
like
del
7 to
pomeriggio, poi
5
cenava,
in the afternoon.
faceva le
Then he
sue
would have
preghiere
dinner. He
fino
would
alle
have
9 di sera,
would
ascoltava le
tell
notizie,
his
la mezzanotte,
prayers. Then we would listen to
poi
some
cenava,
news
poi
half an hour
faceva le
before
sue
dinner.
ultime preghiere,
Then
verso le 9, 10 andava a dormire.
and then around 9 or 10 he would go
Però
to
c'era
sleep.
questa
But there
costante,
would
c'era
be
la
this
calma nel fare le
constancy,
cose,
this
c'era questa
calmness in
possibilità
doing
di
things, the
avere lo
possibility
spazio
of having
necessario
the
per farlo.
space necessary
Molto
for
spesso
things,
non è
because
una
often
questione
it's
di
not
quanto
a
tempo
matter
fisico
of
ho,
how
ma è
much physical
quanto
time I
ne
have,
metto
but
dentro quel tempo.
how much stuff I put in that time.
Perché se io
Because
ho
if I
2
have
ore,
2 hours
mezza
or
giornata, una
half a
giornata,
day
sì,
or
quello è
even
spazio,
a whole day,
ma all'interno di
but
quello spazio
inside that temporal space, I saw many things, and among these things, things that I
alla fine non
so
rimango lì
so I fill up the
nell'essenza
space and I stay there in that feeling of
Una delle
running.
immagini che io
One of
ho
the images that I have, a
questi
bit of
lunghi
these
viaggi,
times
io
in
mi
which
sono
we live and
sentito
in which I
che
felt
per più di
strongly
tanto
in
ero
that
un po' il
time
tapirulano.
was like the um,
Io mi ricordo questa scena,
Tapirulan.
per me
I remember this
iconica,
scene that
a
really
San
remained
Paolo,
impressive. In
tornando
San
dalla
Paulo, one
lezione
day,
del
going
centro
back from
didattico
the
dalla casa di
teachings
mio
in
padre,
the Dhamma center, I was
nella
going
strada c'era
to
una
visit my
palestra
mother, and there
con
was
delle
a
bici.
gym there
In
to
questa
do
palestra
exercise,
c'erano
and
lì tutti quelli che correvano da fermi, quelli tutti in vetrina, no?
and
Quelli che
and
correvano
there
da
there would
fermi,
be
quelli che facevano le scale da
all the
fermi,
people
perché la bicicletta
running
e tutto così.
in front of the gym,
E vedendo questo ho detto, ma
like
guarda, è
on the
una
spot. And
chiara
for
immagine
me,
del
it was like a
filosofico che
very
molto spesso noi facciamo.
simple metaphor of the life that we do. Often we run, we keep
Corriamo,
running, we
viviamo la
feel
nostra vita con un
that
sacco di
space
cose
and our life with
e c'è
many
questa
things, and there
sensazione
is this
interna di
internal
pienezza
feeling. Is there
per
this
niente da
internal
nessuna parte.
there is this internal feeling of fullness, but without getting
O
anywhere,
meglio, di
or
solito per star
better,
male.
mostly to feel bad.
Non so se è chiaro.
I don't know if this is clear,
Però la cosa
but the
interessante è
interesting
vedere che
thing
questo
is that
correre
this running
non è una necessità,
is not a
ma è
necessity, it's a
un'abitudine.
habit.
È un'abitudine che abbiamo
It's a
in
habit
qualche
that
modo
we
creato, con la
somehow
quale noi
created
partecipiamo,
and
il corpo
in
fa parte
which
di
we
quello.
participate, and everything
E in fondo ho
around us
detto,
is
no, io
part
mi
of
sono
that,
detto,
until
non
at
è
a
vero che
certain
non ho
point,
tempo, non c'è
one
modo,
day I
non ci
told
sono
myself,
libri a
it's
tutti i
not true that
costi,
I
non
don't
ho
have
tempo
time,
per fare
because I also at a certain point I started answering
non c'è
everybody, I
modo,
don't have time, I don't have
non è
time,
vero,
I don't have time.
il
But
tempo ce
then
l'ho.
it's not true that I don't have time. I
Quando
do
vedi,
have
no?
time.
La Terra gira intorno a se stessa
The
ogni
earth
giorno.
is
Il
rotating
tempo ce l'ho solo
around
che io posso
itself. That is
scegliere di
one day,
viverlo.
and so it's about choosing the priorities.
Perché se io
Because
magari
if I
vado a dedicare uno
don't
spazio
instead of the things that
più il
are
collettivo
related to the center,
e dare meno
and giving less importance
minore per le
as a
cose
priority
personali.
for personal
Non è che
meetings.
io non ho tempo
So
per
it's not
parlare
like
con gli
I don't
altri,
have
vuol dire che
time to talk with
l'individuo è di
everyone.
minore
It's
importanza
just
per
that
il
the
collettivo.
individual is of
In
less
questa scelta che ho
importance
fatto,
than the collective in this choice
semplicemente
that I
quello,
took.
ossia ho scelto di dedicarmi a
Simply
quello
I because
perché
I
ho proprio
chose
alla fine dei
to
conti, da quando
dedicate
mi
to
sveglio a
that.
quando
And
mi
so
sveglio,
since when I wake up until when I
devo
wake up,
riuscire a
I have
gestire le
to
cose che
manage
non riesco a
things, and
soddisfare
I
tutte
can't
le richieste.
satisfy all the requests.
No? C'è una lista d'attesa che
There is
ogni
like
volta
a
mi sento un po'
waiting list.
così a disagio,
I feel
perché
like a
sento tanto
bit
come
not
poi
a bit uneasy
non è
with
che
that,
mi piace tanto essere schiavo della agenda,
but
perciò
I don't
cerco
also
un po'
like to
per
be a
ottenere
slave of
quello che sta dentro la
the
stessa
schedule
agenda,
of the
per
agenda, and
sfruttare
so.
dentro l'immagine. Però al di là di questo non è vero che io non abbia
But
tempo,
other than
perché
this,
se
it's
io
not
ho
true that I don't
scelto
have time. I do have
questa serie
time.
di
It's a
quadri
matter
e
of
io vado
what
avanti.
are the priorities that I give.
Però all'interno di questo,
But inside of this,
quando io mi sono detto io ho
when I
del
told
tempo,
myself I have all
io
the time,
scelgo quello
but
che
I
voglio fare
choose
e
what
ci
I want to
saranno
do,
delle cose che non
and
potrò
there
fare.
will be things that I will not be able to do.
Fino a quel
And
punto
up to
c'è
that
stato un
point,
momento in cui, per
there was
esempio, io cercavo
a
soddisfare
time where I would try
ogni
to
richiesta.
satisfy every request that would get to me.
La realtà è che dormivo
The
poco.
reality is that I was sleeping
La realtà è che
too
stavo sempre
little,
viaggiando in
and
macchina
that I was always traveling with my car
partendo
from
da
one
Milan, dopo tutta
side
una
to the
giornata
other,
intensa, andare a
leaving from
sistemare il
Milan,
motorino,
After an intense day, going to teach in Turin, getting to a bagnano at 2 in the night, and I was always driving. And then a day after, a thousand things. I did a few years like this. And at a certain point, I realized, okay, I need to think a bit more like mid long term. So I need to sleep well, eat well. I need to have time to reflect on certain things. I need to have time to. It's a choice that we make. And so I had to say no to many things that, according to me, it's something good. What I want to say is that in the life of each one of us, there are many requests. There are many things that are attracting us. We live in a context where there is a lot to do and at the same time also little to do. I don't know if this is clear. I don't know if you ever felt that you were running and at a certain point, okay, what do I do? I don't know what do I do or what should I do? And so it's important. Where I want to get to is that we need to revisit with ourselves what are our priorities and understand that this way of running, is not a necessity, but it's a habit. And we can also call it an addiction, something that we created and we live inside of that and we always stay in that running and so on. I remember once a friend, like disciple in Brazil, at a certain point, she took a vacation because she was working a lot, and it was the first time that she took a vacation where she didn't bring the phone. She stopped everything for 2 or 3 weeks after something like 80 years, always working with a very intense rhythm. And when she came back, just after resuming work, she got an ictus, and so she got to the doctor, and the doctor didn't understand. And look, I don't understand. Is there something wrong in what you did? No, it's all normal. Look, everything that I did differently is that after 8 years, I finally had a beautiful vacation where I disconnected. Ah, that's the thing. Okay, you need to choose. Either you do vacations with more frequency or you shouldn't do them. At this and so with this my advice is not like to never take vacations, but we need to have a healthy rhythm for all of us because we run to do what, to go where, the question that I ask myself, because at the end what is more important is not the quantity or the speed, but the quality. Is it worth more talking a few minutes with someone with quality, presence, attention, affection, rather than talking often, fast, without even looking at each other in the eyes? Is it worth it's worth more to take a moment, to take some time to write a good letter to someone rather than writing 1,000 messages in a hurry. So what happens is that this running is a habit that we created for ourselves and in which we entered, and it's not only about this, it's about also the speed to which we want to obtain things. We come from a time very little while ago where if you wanted something, and you wanted to buy something, then you had to go and look for it and talk with people, look for a specialized store, do the path to go there. There will be a process in that. And now we arrive to a time where if you want something, you just take the phone in your hands and within minutes you already bought it. And if it doesn't get there the day after, then you get nervous because it's like feels like it's too late. If I don't need that thing tomorrow and at the moment of buying I can choose whether tomorrow or in 3 days, what do I choose? Tomorrow, because we have an illusion in which we strongly believe that the more and more fast is better. The more things I do, the more things I have, the more fast I do them. In the strange foolishness that the more I can do things quickly, the more time I have. I don't know if you've ever had this attitude. Because if I buy things quickly, then I don't have to waste my time to go to the store to buy it. I don't have to spend my time to write a letter to the person because I do it like this or that. But the point is that we are always running. And reminds me of a documentary that I saw once about duck. And there was a scene of this woman that was saying the following: I live in villages, far away from this in this small village in the mountains, far from the capital of Ladakh. You know, for me, you have to take the water, you have to walk half an hour at least and get where the source is and take it home. So you want to drink a tea, you need something. It's not like you just open. So you want to make a fire, you need to collect wood. You need to make the fire bit by bit, give it time to take care of it. In order also to cook, you want to talk with something, then you go down the mountain, you go up on the other mountain, you go to the village close by, and you go talk with the other person. And this woman, she was very simple. She said, there is one thing that I don't understand. When I go and visit my sister in the city, from her, you want water, you turn one thing and it comes out water. You want fire, you turn another thing and fire comes out. You want to talk with something, you lift that thing up and you talk with the other person. And it's all so easy, but every time that I come to her, she never has time to talk with me, to be with me. And every time she comes to me, I have all the time to talk with her. And so here I ask myself, generations of our grandparents or also of our parents, but let's talk about at least 40 years ago, which is not really a long time ago. The feeling, the subjective feeling of people, according to you, was to have more time or less time? More. People that live in, in the middle of fields that have to collect wood and need to work the ground, do they have a subjective feeling of having more time or less time? More time. Why do we have this feeling of having less time? Because we need to do a lot of things in order to survive, because our life is much more consumed by survival, or do or maybe I think is because our heads, our thoughts are so full. We have so many objects of interaction, so many things. We have in the present time our heads feel full with things that we want to do in the future, like things that we want to see, places that we want to go. we receive a quantity of information today that it's crazy.
Perciò
And so
ogni informazione che io ricevo occupa uno spazio
every
dentro di me.
each information that I
Quindi in
receive,
realtà
it's
non è vero che noi
takes
non
up a
abbiamo
space within myself.
tempo
So it's not true that we don't have time, we don't have space,
perché riempiamo
because we
il
fill
nostro essere
our being
con cose
with
che vanno a
things that
ostruire la
obstruct the
possibilità di
possibility of
rilassarsi, di
relaxing,
guardare qualcosa
of
di molto più
watching
profondo,
something in a deeper
poter
way, of
riflettere,
reflecting,
poter semplicemente
of
stare con noi
simply
stessi e vivere
being
il
able
momento
to be with
presente
ourselves
con
and live
consapevolezza.
the present moment with a certain awareness.
E quello che abbiamo detto prima è
And
che cos'è la
what
cosa più
we talked
importante
about
nella
before,
vita?
what is the most
Vita
important
stessa.
thing in life? Life
Magari ci
itself.
sono anche altre cose più
Well,
importanti, ma
well, we
lasciamo
can
perdere questo
also
momento.
consider there
Perché
are
secondo me
other
la cosa
things
più
that are more
importante
important, but
nella
let's
vita
leave
è
them
essere
for another
credenti
time.
nel mandato di vivere
Because,
veramente.
yeah,
Quello è ancora più importante.
more important is even what do
È
you
un risultato
become
di come vivi la vita.
living the life, but that's like a
E la
result of
risorsa
how
più
you live it.
importante sono le
And so
parole
the
che
most
diciamo, i pensieri
precious
che abbiamo, gli
resource
incontri che
is
abbiamo. La vita è
the
vera e propria.
life itself, the interactions that we
Alla
have,
fine quello che
the
conta,
words
quello
that
che
we
è la
speak.
risorsa più preziosa è quella. No? Perciò
So
io volevo
I
più che
wanted
altro fare questa
more than
riflessione
anything
insieme,
make this
che
reflection
questo
together that
correre
this running
alla fine
at the
ci
end
porta alla sensazione di avere meno tempo
takes gives us a feeling of having
ed
less
è
time, and
un'abitudine,
it's a
non una
habit, it's
necessità.
not a necessity.
Alla fine
And at the
facendo meno si
end,
fa di più,
by doing less, we do more.
prendendo una cosa per volta,
By taking one thing at a
dedicando un po' più di
time,
attenzione,
dedicating
riuscendo
more
a fare
attention
quella
to it,
cosa, facendo quella cosa e non
managing
stare lì, faccio
to
questo,
do that
faccio
thing,
altrimenti.
by doing that thing and not like
Per
doing
esempio
20
una
other
cosa che
things while
io
you're doing it.
personalmente
And
ho
personally,
applicato nella
a
mia
thing that
vita
I applied in
e
my
che vi
life,
invito
and
anche a
that I
voi a
also
riflettere
invite
su
you to
questo,
reflect on that,
è il fatto
is
che
the
se io
fact
sto
that
parlando
if
con
I'm
una
talking
persona,
with
sto
a
parlando
person,
con quella
I am
persona.
talking with that person.
Se sto leggendo
If I
una
am
cosa,
reading
sto leggendo
something, I
quella
am
cosa
reading that
e
thing,
non permetto
and I
a
don't
qualcun
allow
altro di entrare di traverso, a non
to
ser che
something
sia di
else
livello di importanza
to
molto alto.
enter sideways,
Una
unless it's
volta c'era,
really important.
per dire, le uniche volte che
Once,
rispondevo il telefono in certe occasioni si mi chiamava Lama Gangchen.
in some occasions, the only
Mi è capitato su due o
circumstances
tre persone, ma
under which I
figurati
will
se
answer
stavo
the phone
facendo
will
quella
be if
cosa.
Lama Gangchen will call me.
I miei maestri, però quello che succede è
So what happens is
sto qua
I
seduto, non importa
we are here. It
che
doesn't
tempo
matter
è,
like
ma mi vuole qualcuno
they're calling me, but it's not the time. It's
dopo c'è
not
il momento di guardare i messaggi
after. There is time to
e c'è
look
il
at the
momento di non fare
messages.
altro, richiamo indietro
I call back the person that called me
se ritengo che sia una cosa che abbia una
if I believe
necessità
that it's
importanza.
something that has a
Se non vedo che
necessity and
c'è
importance.
qualcosa
If I
che
don't
magari mi ha chiamato, non c'è
see that there is
nessun
something that I can
time
connect,
limit.
well,
Passo
if
subito
that person
davanti,
needs me,
non ho
will
nessun
call me
problema,
back.
rispondo mai.
I don't know.
Ma vero
I
anche
always
per
seem like I'm
se
not the
stiamo
nice guy who
conversando,
never
poi
answers the phone.
mi chiami e rispondo, vi sembra carino?
So, like for example, if someone calls
Abbiamo
me
visto
now
che
and
non ci
I
sono momenti
answer,
in qualunque momento che sto
is it
svolgendo
nice?
qualche momento
No.
nella giornata che non sto facendo qualcosa
So
di relevante con altri, ovviamente i momenti per rispondere diventano pochi,
since
perché ci
there
stiamo
are a few
impegnando in
moments during
qualcosa
the
che sto
day
facendo
where
con
I'm not doing
nessuno.
something with others, then there
Sto
are
facendo la
also
meditazione
little
del giorno,
moments where
arriva
I
un
can
messaggio,
answer the phone. So I am
mi
meditating,
fermo,
I get a message, what do? I
con quale
stop
braccio?
with one
Sul
hand.
telefono, non sto scherzando. Questo mi ha fatto ricordare una volta che c'era Kyabje Son Rinpoche, uno dei maestri di Lama
So
Gangchen,
this also
che era
reminds me of
molto diretto,
Kyabse
molto dritto.
Rinpoche. It was very
E un giorno
direct.
stavano facendo insieme
And
in questo
once they were doing in the
monasterio di
monastery this
autoiniziazione
practice of
che stavano facendo
meditation,
Yamantaka,
Yamantaka sadhana,
l'autoiniziazione di
the
Yamantaka. E a un
auto-initiation of
certo punto
Yamantaka,
c'è
and
una
at a
visualizzazione
certain point there is a visualization
dove si
where
visualizza
you
nel
visualize
proprio cuore che c'è un
at the
disco
heart that
lunare
there is
che rappresenta la propria
a
compassione
lunar
e
disc
sopra c'è un
that
Vajra
represents
simile a questo che
compassion, and on top there is a
rappresenta
Vajra like
la
this,
mente della saggezza.
white, that represents the mind of
In
wisdom
realtà quando si fanno le
and of
pratiche
bliss.
e
And
si sta facendo in gruppo
actually,
o
when you're doing
individualmente e
practices
uno vuole bere il
in
tè o
group or
l'acqua,
also
dovrebbero
individually,
essere delle pause fatte nei momenti
when you want to drink water or tea, there should be pauses in precise moments, and someone poured the tea in a moment that was not really right, and so what was leading the practice, what was leading the practice, poured the tea, and Rinpoche tried to contain himself. At a certain point, he burst out, so to speak, and then he told him, "Now you take the Vajra, you put in the tea, and you eat it, because you're there in the middle of the visualization, and now there is also the tea, and yeah." This is to say that if we are doing something that has a level of importance, we are doing that, and we entered a moment where every kind of news, messages that we get, or updates on 1,000 things that we can get on the phone, every person that writes to us and calls, becomes like a priority on top of um, where one is present at a certain moment. I hope it's not an experience that is shared by everyone, but it's likely that it is from the most. So it's important to say also, no, I am here. This strange object, we leave it aside, and then after that I see who called me, and I decide when or how to call back, because otherwise what happens is that we are bombed by information constantly, and we have a hard time to be present on what we are doing, and we are not living well with neither one thing and the other. But what I want to say is that very often we live these dynamics as if we were a victim of the time that we live in, when it's not true. It's just habits that we created, also influenced by the context around us, but that depend on us, whether we want to nourish them or not. Because I believe that when we talk about the path of Dharma, the gradual path to enlightenment, so on, there are many things that one should and should face, but the fundamental point is a more healthy life, more sane life. And this hurry that we have, this running, because this constant running, is a huge interference for the path of spiritual growth. Because one of the things that in this path we need is to be able to listen to our intuition, to deepen something, to read, reflect, observe ourselves. For example, it's fundamental in our path to be able to develop a good capacity of self-observation, where we manage to observe ourselves while we are doing things. So I'm acting physically, but I'm having awareness on what I'm doing. I am able to have awareness of what I'm saying, and to have awareness on what I'm thinking and feeling, up to the point where certain feelings and emotions, when they start to rise, we can catch them when they are just about to. They are there, just rising, and we say, okay, no, this yes, this no. We can direct ourselves. But how can we do this if we are taken by 20,000 things, running from one thing to the other? This without getting into the whole argument that this process of running and running makes it so that our system is always alert. And we not only, but we also use resources to maintain this state of activity, this state of alertness. So from the coffee, I don't know how many of you can't wake up really without coffee. There are people like that. I talk about you because personally I don't drink coffee, but there are many other things. For example, we can try to stimulate ourselves with reading the news or talking with someone, many things to try to take ourselves to a state of more activity. That in some cases it's very useful to be very active. In some cases you need to run and be quick to see things. It's not like always we can be meditative. And there are moments where we need to wake up. We also need that. But there are also times when where one needs also to be with himself and to stop, to reflect, to listen. I have the feeling that more and more we do. I think this is collective, so I say we do. We have more difficulty to be able to focus on a difficult text. For example, reading the Divina Commedia, Divine Comedy, but there is really a beauty in reading a difficult text, like reading it 20 times and not understanding it. Then at a certain point, there is a glimpse here and there, and then you can put things together, and it's like, whew, magic, and a beautiful sense comes out of it. And it seems that more and more we have less availability to understanding difficult things, to put ourselves, to challenge ourselves with that. We always want things that are already chewed and ready. I hope I'm wrong, but I think not. And so this is interesting because it's not only about the people from Milan, because we are in Milan. I also find the same thing in Tibet, in the monastery of Tashilhunpo, where I used to study. It's a habit that it's getting created, that it's created on a worldwide scale. In some contexts it's worse, in some contexts it's better, but this object, this phone, is something that spread this culture, this way of living, that it's we have the luck of being in a context where we can be aware and see the collateral negative effects of this state of who is being running. And so it's up to us to stop and to say, but do I want to go on like this? So let's talk about the physical body. The most widespread diseases are related to the heart, to pressure, to our tumors. One of the things that is in common among these things, well, from what I understood, don't take it as a certainty because I'm not a doctor and can understand up to a certain point, but what I understood is that tumors, heart problems, one of the main causes of it's cortisol that increases, a chronic state of inflammation that generates stress, chronic stress, and here it's something that depends on us. The great majority of the causes of stress, we can change them. And it's a choice of giving the right priorities. It's a choice of being able to value our health, mental, spiritual, physical, familiar, social. Being able to tell what is worth more for me, whether to cultivate a sane, pleasurable relationship with the husband, the wife, with the children, or is it more important to earn more money in this moment, to then spend them more? It's a question let's remember also that we can't have everything in life. Also because there are some things that then um, counterbalance on the other side. The concept itself of space, that a few weeks ago, I don't remember when we talked about this, if it was last week or the other before. So space is the lack of obstruction. If there is no space, it means that there is obstruction. The majority of us, we don't have an infinite internal space. When we put like four things there, the fifth doesn't fit. So we try to put a bit of this and a bit of that, and we jump from one thing or the other, and there is never a context where we can manage them well, because one thing is the obstruction to the other, and a lot of space is also occupied by ghosts, things that don't exist. I don't know, have you ever got stressed for things that don't exist, that never existed and that will never exist? And then we say to be mentally sane. In Tibetan, when one is worried for something that will never be there and stays there to suffer, the suffering of worry that a rabbit falls from the sky. I don't exactly where does this come from. Suffering for the sky falling on his head. You can say maybe it's because that there is a rabbit in the moon. You can see like a sort of rabbit in the moon in the culture, in Tibetan culture. So maybe it's because of that, or the rabbit itself fearing for the sky to fall on its head. But the point is that often we consume an important part of our lives with tension, with a sense of feeling bad for something that doesn't exist and will never exist. Because if we think about things that don't exist and will never exist, but that makes us feel good, then that's welcome. One can stay there to imagine a future, beautiful, wonderful, and beautiful things that make you feel well. Look, that will never happen, but in the present, it exists, and I'm feeling well. It's like when someone promised many things to Lama Gangchen. Once in Nepal, they said, okay, we do beautiful projects, and everybody was happy of those ideas and projects. At a certain point, this person disappears. I don't remember who that was. Disappears, and all the projects collapse from one moment to the other. Many people were very disappointed. Ah, look, he promised. Why did he do this? And then this historical friend of Lama Gangchen came and said, look, I'm profoundly grateful to this person because he gave us some days of joy. We were all very enthusiastic and happy. Did we feel well? Look, that's it. If I go and elucubrate on beautiful things and then they never happen, but at that moment I feel well, then that's beautiful. But most of the time we elucubrate on things that make us feel well, and then if they happen, we feel bad twice. And so, going back to the awareness and asking ourselves, what am I doing? With what am I filling my life? And I believe that very often the things that then nourish us the most are also the most simple things. It's really the simple moments we need as human beings to have a balance between what I think and what I feel. There needs to be a sort of a harmony between that, and normally the harmony is made of three parts: what I think, what I feel, and what I do. If if there is harmony between these three parts, then what happens is that one, our internal inner dialogue calms down. There is more quietness, more peace, a feeling. Of,
Ma io non la vorrei fare, ma non la
and
dovrei
as I'm
fare.
doing it, I should think, ah, but I shouldn't do this, like, but I can do otherwise.
Poi c'è il discorso quando quello che sento e quello che penso non
And
sono
then
d'accordo.
there is when what I think and what I feel don't
Io so che questo è il giusto, però
agree.
vorrei fare
I know
diverso.
that this is right, but I want to do it differently.
E dobbiamo trovare il
And
modo
we
per
need to
creare la più
find
possibile
the
armonia
way
fra
to
tutte queste
create
parti.
the most possible harmony
Una
between
delle
these
parti
parts.
importanti
And one of the
è che la
important
nostra
parts is
parte
that
emozionale,
our
che è una
emotional
parte
part,
molto
which is
importante,
very important,
spesso trascurata, molto
often
importante,
neglected,
ha bisogno di
needs
tempi diversi dai tempi del capire.
um, needs a rhythm, a time, a speed that is different from
Come ne ho
the
parlato
speed
diverse
of
volte,
understanding.
però
Something that
riprendendolo
I talked about
velocemente,
many times, but let's take it
siamo
again
qui adesso insieme.
briefly. We are here together now.
C'è una parte
There is a
di
part
noi
of
che
us
riguarda un
that
processo mentale,
is about a
di
mental process of
comprensione
understanding,
cognitiva, di
of
capire,
cognitive
eccetera.
understanding,
Poi sicuramente fra le varie argomenti, le varie
and
cose che tocchiamo,
within the various
nasce un
arguments that we
impatto
touch,
cognitivo ognuno diverso.
it leaves
Però
a
c'è
different emotional
ogni
imprint
incontro
to
che
each
abbiamo, ogni
one.
cosa che facciamo c'è
Every
un
interaction
componente
that we have, there is an emotional
attrazione,
component with that.
avversione,
Attraction,
gratitudine,
aversion,
eccetera,
gratitude,
rabbia,
joy, anger, rancor.
mille cose che
There are a
vengono
thousand
fuori
things
in
that
quel
come out
momento.
in the
Poi cosa
various
succede? Che
interactions.
mentre
But what
nella
happens
vita quotidiana
is that
stiamo
while
parlando
in the
insieme,
daily
c'è
life, okay,
un'emozione
we're
che viene,
talking
magari
to each other and
incontro una
an
persona con
emotion
cui
comes
c'è
out,
un'attrazione,
I
c'è una
meet a person maybe
simpatия,
towards which I have a
gioia,
certain
eccetera,
attraction and
finisce
I feel
quella
a certain
telefonata,
feeling of joy, of
prendo
pleasure,
un messaggio di un oggetto di avversione.
and then after that maybe I read a message of an
Io non
object of
rispondo
aversion
subito.
and I connect to
Poi a
that.
un certo
And
punto,
then
finito quello,
after
parlo con un'altra
that is
persona,
finished, I
passo
talk
per
with
una
something
cosa più
else and then
generica, più neutra.
I
E alla
go to
fine di
something
questo
that is more
mescolato a
neutral.
casa,
And at the end of this mixing, I
dentro di
come
noi
home,
c'è
and
una
within
muffa,
us
no?
there is
Una
like
sta sopra l'altra.
a soup of things,
Perché
one on top of
noi
the
non
other, because
riusciamo, a livello
we can't,
emotivo, di essere ermetici.
on an emotional level, to be kind of hermetic.
Ossia, mentre io sto parlando
So
con te
as
e
I'm
finisce
talking with you,
questo
and
incontro,
that this meeting
io vado a parlare
ends,
con un'altra
and I go to
persona,
talk with
nel
someone else,
prossimo
in the
incontro
next
c'è una parte emotiva,
encounter,
io sono
there is an
influenzato in
emotional
quel
part,
secondo
and I'm
incontro dalle
influenced in
emozioni che ho vissuto in
the
primo, o no?
second meeting encounter by the emotions that I
Inevitabilmente.
felt in the first one, inevitably.
E a seconda dei tipi di emozioni che andiamo a vivere,
And
hanno bisogno
according
di più
to
tempo o
the
meno tempo per
types of
elaborarsi,
emotions that we
per
go and live,
digerirli, per
we need more
scandarli.
or less
Abbiamo
time
bisogno di tempo per
to
digerire
digest
le
them.
nostre
We
emozioni,
need
per
time to
elaborarle, per
digest, to
capire, per
elaborate our
sentire,
emotion, to
perché finché
understand,
non abbiamo dato il
because
tempo necessario
until we have given the
all'interno dello
time,
spazio interno
but more than time, the
necessario per
physical internal
elaborare certe
space to
emozioni,
elaborate certain emotions,
rimane questa nebbia interna a livello
we are left
emotivo
with a
che vuol dire
certain
che non so cosa sto sentendo.
certain mental fog that we don't really know
Provo una cosa,
what
poi
we're
passo
feeling
all'altro, poi
about a
andiamo a
certain thing or
sovrapporre
the
uno
other,
con
and then
l'altro
we put them one on
e
top of the
reagisco in
other,
un modo
and I
su una cosa
react
che non c'entra niente con quello.
to something with in a way that
Quindi
doesn't have to do
i
with that
momenti durante la nostra vita
specifically. So
dove
the
apparentemente
moments
non
in our
stiamo
lives
facendo
where we
niente
apparently are not doing anything
sono
are
importantissimi.
very important.
Quel momento in cui per me, per
That,
esempio, bere il mio tè al mattino
for
con calma,
example, that moment for me is drinking the
con la mia
tea
fissa
in
del
the
caffè
morning slowly.
e
I
sono scorto
I drink
infinito,
my white tea. I have like
regalato che buono,
infinite.
bevo il mio tè al mattino con
Um,
calma,
I drink it very
una
slowly.
breve passeggiata,
I take a short walk.
quella giornata che sembra che non hai niente da fare
That day
e
that
non
it
te ne
seems like
smetti con
you
tantissimi
don't
impegni
have
e
anything to
fai
do,
quelle cose
and you don't fill it up with many stimuli, but you just
piuttosto che dipingere, piuttosto che
also
camminare, piuttosto
cleaning
che
or
fare la
painting or
montagna,
walking or doing
piuttosto che fare
gardening,
delle cose
doing
dove
things
il corpo si
where
muove
where the body can
ma
move,
non c'è la necessità
but
di
there is
riempire di
not the
pensieri, di
necessity
fare
of filling
pensieri
up
con
the
troppe
head
cose.
with many thoughts, with many things.
Ok? Le attività passive,
The
tipo vedere un film,
passive
come funzionano?
activities, like watching a movie, don't really work well with this.
Fatto sta che questi momenti di
So the
pausa,
point is
dove
that these
non
moments
stiamo
of
attivamente
break, of
facendo quello
pause,
che
where we're
ci
not
inducono
actively doing
a
something, really help us
digerire
with
le emozioni
digesting
che abbiamo
the
vissuto.
emotions that we lived recently.
E dare questo giusto
And
spazio
giving the right
ci
space
aiuta
to
a
this
poter
helps us
mettere
to
chiarezza,
then give
a
clarity,
poter anche trovare più
to find
quell'armonia
more
fra quello
a
che penso e
harmony
quello che
between
sento.
what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what I'm doing.
È chiaro questo, no?
Is this clear?
Bene. Nell'insieme di questo
In
c'è
the
una parte che è importante.
ensemble of this, there is a part that is important.
Un po' di tempo fa io volevo prendere
A
qualche
while ago,
animale
I
per
wanted
portare
to
al
get
centro, che ci vuole tanto tempo, alla fine non l'ho mai
a
preso,
few
però ho
pets
fatto un
to
po'
put
di
in
ricerca,
in
gli
the
animali che volevo
center.
prendere erano
And
l'alpaca.
I wanted to take an
Ho
alpaca
detto è carino,
because I thought
ha una
it's
faccia
cute. It has
simpatica,
a nice, funny
poi ho
face.
visto tutte le
And then I
qualità
looked at all the
dell'alpaca,
qualities of the
no? Un
alpaca, and
animale che tiene
it's an
sempre
animal
pulito,
that
non mangia
cleans
l'erba, non
the
mangia le
ground but
piante,
doesn't eat
gli alberi, eccetera,
the
eccetera. Quindi va
plants,
benissimo per tante
the
cose.
roots.
Però
So it's
vedendo
good for
questo ho
many
detto,
things.
anche
But seeing
l'alpaca
this,
però
then
non può stare da
comes
solo.
out that the alpaca can't
E
be
non è
on
come il
his own.
cane che
It's not like
accetta
the
la
dog that
compagnia
just
dell'umano.
that accepts the
L'alpaca ha
company of a
bisogno di
human.
compagnia di
Alpaca needs the
alpache.
company of other
Punto.
alpacas.
Se no va in depressione
Otherwise, it will get
e sta proprio
depressed
male.
and it will really feel bad.
Ok? Quindi l'alpaca ha
And so
bisogno di
the
essere
alpaca
almeno
needs
2 o
to
3
be at least
4
with other
per stare bene
two
fra di
or
loro,
three,
perché anche 2 mi sa che
because
non
also
funziona
two
subito, no?
alpacas apparently don't doesn't really work,
Perché 2 la dinamica è io,
because
te,
the
te e io,
dynamic
dopo di un po' anche
with two
l'alpaca
is
non
like
va.
me and you and me, and after a while also the
Ok?
alpaca is not happy with that.
Quindi io quello che mi chiedo è, ok, quando noi vediamo gli animali, molto spesso si dice questo è un
So
animale
when we see
vagabondo,
animals,
questo
often
è
we
un animale
see
solitario, no? Per esempio c'è anche
okay,
nel
that's a
Dharma
herd animal, that's solitary
si
animal.
parla di un tipo di praticante del Dharma
And
che viene
in the
chiamato
philosophy, there is also a type of Dharma practitioner,
solitario simile al rinoceronte.
uh,
Perché dice che è un tipo di
solitary
rinoceronte che vive
auditor
solitario.
similar to
Questo
the
tipo di praticante
rhino.
riceve gli insegnamenti
And,
una volta e poi dopo
and there is a
segue
type
tutti i
of
suoi
practitioner
apprendistati
that
nella
hears
vita.
the
Ma è
teachings
un livello
once and
però di
then
estensione,
follows
una parte
the
minima,
teachings
eccetera,
in a
perché
solitary
vive una
way.
parte minima.
But this is a
Ma
minimal
in
part.
generale,
But in general,
che noi siamo animali
we are animals
fatti per
that are
stare da
made
soli o
to
fatti per
be
stare in compagnia?
with others or with ourselves,
Compagnia,
in company.
ok? È più un po'
And
simile all'alpaca, due
so
non basta.
it's more like similar to the alpaca.
Ci
Two is
vuole un
not
po' di
enough. We
più,
need a bit more
perché ci sono tante dinamiche
because there
nello
are many
scambio.
dynamics in the exchange
Anche qual è una delle
one with the
peggiori
other.
torture che l'essere
What
umano
is
riesce a
one of the
provare?
worst tortures that the human
La solitaria.
being could find?
Rinchiudi una persona
Closing a
che non può
person
entrare in
where
contatto con nulla e
that person can
nessuno,
get in
non ha
touch with
niente a che fare
anything
col giorno, con la notte, con
or
nessuna
or
informazione esterna,
anyone,
eccetera,
not
eccetera.
even with the
O
day
impazzisce o
or
raggiunge
if
l'illumination.
external
Questi due
information.
passi sono duri,
Either
no?
that person gets crazy or reaches enlightenment. There are only these two
Nel senso che c'è
possibilities.
anche chi nella
In the
storia ha
sense that there is
scelto di
also in
essere da solo in
history
un
that
contesto del genere per
that
meditare, eccetera,
people who
a
decided to
livello di
put
maturità non molto.
himself in that context for
Quello che voglio
meditating, but
dire
you
è
need
che
a really important level of
noi
maturity.
abbiamo bisogno del contatto,
So
dello
we
scambio.
need contact, we need
Noi abbiamo bisogno della
exchange
condivisione.
and sharing,
Basta vedere il quanto che noi diamo
and
importanza
just
all'altro
see
per
how
vedere
much
noi stessi.
importance we give to the other
Noi
to
non
see
abbiamo
ourselves.
un'autonomia
We
neanche
don't
di
have
identità.
uh, an autonomy of identity even.
L'alpaca non lo so se ha
The
questo problema,
alpaca, I don't know if
ma noi
has this
sicuramente ce
problem,
l'abbiamo.
but we definitely have.
Non lo so,
let's think about ourselves for a bit. When we think, okay, who am I? What do I do? Is it right? Is it not right what I'm doing? Have I understood enough? Have I not understood enough? Can we do any of this? Um, can we have any of these thoughts completely like auto-referential, or we need to compare ourselves with others? We need that, right? We are always there, seeing, looking at the other, and using the other also. We have created in recent times. Just just like that more and more fast is better, which eventually is not from my point of view. The other illusion is that if I can and manage to have and to do what I want, when I want, and how I want, I will feel better. Because one of the characteristics of being together is that another entity is created, which is us, we. There is me, there is you, and then there is us. Each one of us here, and then there is each one that is here now, and then there is the us. When I give more importance to the I rather than the us, and this is the illusion that was somehow presented to us and that we fell into this illusion, naturally we will be in conflict. Also for trivialities, because my necessities are more important than your necessities, and our necessities together, they come to a point where they don't exist basically, because the us, it becomes nothing else than my ego together with you, rather than being an entity that is called us. I don't know if this is clear. And what happens is that when this us exists, it gives us tremendous strength. We adapt, we put ourselves at the disposal, at the service of this us. It can be it can be many things, this us. But the point is that it's good for us to share, to have something that goes beyond my I and mine. We need it. We are animals of group. That don't like to obey. They do things only under two conditions: whether it's funny or whether it's good for the herd. If it's necessary for the herd, even if they don't like it, they will do it. Otherwise, it needs to be funny. Like the second time that you throw the thing, you say, "No, I already did it once. I'm not." It's not like now every time I understood. Even if I go there and I call my dog, "Come here," if there is a function, a reasoning, and then she comes. Otherwise, she looks at me like, "What do you want?" So we are herd animals. But one of the characteristics that are important is that the more we can value the us, the collective, naturally, the more I go and nourish the part of myself that needs. But it becomes important to deconstruct this illusion that in order to be happy, we have to have what we want, when we want, and how we want. Because if my happiness depends on what I want and how I want and when I want, then the other becomes Does the other become something that is in favor or in opposition? In opposition also, because the other also wants what he wants, when he wants, how he wants, and the rare moments when we want the same thing and what you want also helps me to get what I want. That beautiful. Then there is us, fake. And then when the time comes when where I want doesn't match what you want, or what I want matches what you want, but because in order for me to have, then you can't have, then tensions are created. What is worth more, my I or yours? What individual is more important, me or you? It depends. I'm older, I'm younger, I'm a man, I'm a woman, or this or that. One creates a whole set of reason to say that to justify the fact that I am worth more than you. There but 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 what happens is that until we create a us, that it's not an ensemble of eyes, I, that then there is a conflict. Also on a society level, outside of the family context, work context, when an awareness exists of collective, of a collectiveness, then you can go beyond. I experienced this, for example, is similar, maybe like a trivial thing. I managed to do this in the construction of the temple with all the workers, because it's quite a classic that in construction sites one enterprise gets into conflict with the other. Often there is like the electrician, he needs to do like this, the plumber, it's your business. Then there is the one who takes care of the structure, and but there in the construction of the temple I managed to give a collective identity of doing an important thing, and so one was helping the other. The plumber was having a problem, the electrician was taking care of it. Everyone with joy in doing together, because that there is more rather than what is mine, than that there is the our. And that brings a particular joy, a sense of belonging that we need. One of the most important problems that we are creating for ourselves and that we have always more, it's the sense of meaninglessness, of being useless. What is on the opposite side of this uselessness? It's the sense of belonging, of being part of something that is bigger than me, where I am part of something where not only I sustain and help, but I also receive help and sustainment. And that it's not obvious that when Buddha taught the Dharma and showed the path, also talked about the importance, about the importance of Dharma, of the spiritual path, and then at a certain point he explained, okay, but in order to have the Dharma, you need who guides you, and so here comes the Buddha, the Guru. But at the end, Buddha said, okay, all of this can't be sustained without the Sangha, the community. And even when we take the Buddhist path, very often I see that we have this individual attitude also in the practice of Dharma, where there is me and my Guru. Then there is my, me and my idam, mine, my meditation, and then what you do is your business. Okay, let's try to respect the other because yeah, we are in the same space, but it's always me plus another. It's not the result of us. When this magic happens of us, that has an incredible power. It has tremendous strength. And even in our spiritual path, this us is fundamental. Buddha called it Gendun, Sangha. The word Sangha from Sanskrit, I wouldn't know the etymology, but Genden in Tibetan, Gen means virtue, which means what does what does well, and Dun means to gather, to be together. So it means the virtues gathering, the virtues being together, the helps in the path of growing, in feeling good, in in behaving in a sane way. Also, from the point of view that we influence each other. There was a documentary that I saw once that I invite everyone to see. I saw it in English language. I wouldn't exactly know where to find it, but it was called Dishonesty, the Truth About Lies. And it showed in this documentary on human behavior, among many different things, how we are conditioned by others that are around us. A classic is that if I get to a place where no rubbish on the ground and I have the paper of a sweet of a candy, what do? I look around, I put it in my pockets. If I go to a place where there are already like 5 or 6 pieces of paper on the ground, what is the likelihood that I also throw it on the ground? Much higher. And so, in the same way, the conduct that each one of us has a strong influence on the conduct of all the others that are part of the same us, of the same community. And so, one of the beautiful aspects when we talk about our community of the Sangha of this is that my actions are not only my actions. The words that I say, the thoughts that I have, the attitude that I use, it doesn't end in myself as a weight also to the others that are around me, also maybe unconsciously, but it has an effect, and this has a power of multiplication. So also my actions, behaving with a certain coherence, with virtue, it's not just for me, it's also for the others. It's also for the people with whom I live. It's more similar to like a father or a mother with the children being home with them. Feels like doing something stupid. Does that person do that in front of the children? It's more difficult. In general, one tries to contain because I need to give the good example. We are part of a bigger family, and our actions have an impact on the others. The actions of the others have an impact on us, even on our thoughts. There is a concept, I don't know it deeply, but I leave it as a point of reflection.
il campo morfogenetico.
The morphogenetic field. It's a concept that was developed. One of the persons that developed is a scientist called Rupert Sheldrake. I met him personally at a conference. We talked for quite a long time. And this concept that he talks about this morphogenetic field, like a really big word, to say that there is a reality that exists that is beyond the material that kind of connects things together. And an example was a study where the two actually talking about this. One in the 80s, something like that, taking an image where
quelle immagini che sono fatte di diverse visi.
it's one of those images that are made of many different faces and they form an image, and they were they were showing this to the two people in Australia, and they would have to tell how many faces they could recognize in the image, and they had like some seconds, and most of them had like an average or 8 or 10. And as they were doing this in Australia, after a while that they were already doing this in England, in a closed TV, um, like a regional thing, so calculating like 2 million people seeing that news, and they were showing that image, and they would explain even the most hidden faces. And a few minutes after that, in Australia, people could recognize more faces than before. And so what is explained is that there is a level that we can call the collective unconscious, the morphogenetic field, but the point is that the more people think in a certain way, the easier it becomes to think in a certain way. And with the internet word, we learned about the viralizing word. So the more people say that something is beautiful, the more that thing becomes generally beautiful, and the other way around. But there are studies that shows that this process is not only because I see other people, but there is another level, and we can't really explain how, where things connect. Like, for example, he was also saying the more you use a word in a certain context, the more that word also gains a certain power. And, uh, and for this also, it becomes an explanation for the power of mantra. And so our thoughts, our emotions have an influence also on people around us. I believe on this profoundly. The same way that we are influenced by the thoughts and emotions of the others. And so it's part of our path to try to to melt, to deconstruct this myth of individualism, because there is this myth. Even in architecture, you can see it. Houses from 10 years ago, they were made like they had a big living room, a big kitchen, and bedrooms quite small, and a shared bathroom. Modern modern houses, they have like a small living room, tiny kitchen, bedrooms bigger, each one with their own bathroom and TV. It seems almost like a hotel. And this
Noi crediamo che se io sono
gives the
più
idea
felice
that
vedendo
we
quello che
believe
io
if
voglio vedere nella mia TV,
we have the idea
tu vedrai
I
quello che
would
tu
be
vuoi nella
happier
tua
if I
TV.
can see what I want with my TV,
E invece
my
vedi quel
room when I
momento in
want,
cui io ti spiego perché questo
instead
cambia.
of
È bello che mi spieghi
having
perché.
that moment where you explain me why is
C'è
that
anche un processo di apprendimento in questo,
show better or the other
saper
way
adattarsi
around.
all'altro,
There is also
saper
a
fare
process
quello che non ti
of
conviene
learning in
vedere.
this, in being able to adapt to the other, in not always doing what I want.
Perciò anche questo
And
diventa
so
importante.
also this becomes important.
Invece noi
But
abbiamo
we
rinforzato, io
have
dico sempre di più,
reinforced
questo strano mito
this myth
dell'individualismo.
of individualism, extreme individualism.
Anche questo concetto di personalizzazione
Also this
delle cose.
context of
Quindi che
customizing things. Like
se io posso
it
scegliere il
seems like
colore, la
if I
forma,
can
la lingua,
choose
mi
the
sarà
color,
meglio.
the shape, and everything, then it will be better.
Non è detto.
It's not said.
Io mi ricordo una volta qualcuno che disse che
I
quando la Ford
remember
fece una delle macchine che fece
that
le macchine più
someone
vendute,
told me whether when the Ford made one of these
una
models
delle
that were
chiavi del
among the
successo di
most
quella
sold in
macchina
history, one of
è
the
che
keys of
il modello
success of
della
that car
macchina
was
era
that the
sempre
model of the
quello
car
su un
was
colore.
just of one color.
Punto.
That's it.
Non si vendeva quel colore lì.
So you
E in
would
questo
sell
caso
that
non
color,
c'erano
just black.
altre
There would be
possibilità.
no other possibilities.
Ma certe volte noi abbiamo
But
bisogno di
sometimes we
semplificare
need to simplify
e uscire un po' da
and
quest'idea di
go
come io
out a
voglio,
bit
quando io
of
voglio,
the idea
eccetera.
of what I want, when I want, how I
Anche per
want,
me,
and
a
so
me
on.
piace tantissimo, per
Also, for
esempio,
me, I really
quando
like,
sta un
for
ristoratore
example,
non deve scegliere
when
il
you go
menù,
to a restaurant where you don't have to
uno
choose
deve
where you
istruire.
eat. For me, it's
Arrivi
beautiful. You
e
just
parli
get
con
there, talk
qualcuno,
with
gli spieghi
someone,
un attimino quello che
explain a
puoi,
bit
nel mio caso poi quello che
what you
non puoi
want, what
mangiare,
you can or
e
can't eat.
dopodiché
In
ti
my case, it's more like
fanno
can't.
qualcosa, ti
And then they
affidano
do
a una
something for
bellissima
you, and you kind of put yourself in
già
the
quello che
hands of the
dicevo,
other,
già
which is
così diminuisce
beautiful
un po' di
thing.
affidamento
Because
verso l'altro. Cosa mangerai?
when I choose, then there is
Io
less
mi
also
affido a
trust in
te,
the other. Now,
è bellissimo, no? E così su tantissime altre
and
cose.
so it's the same also on many other
Però
things.
noi
But
abbiamo
we
un bisogno,
we have a need,
non è una scelta, non è un
which is not a
diritto, un
choice,
bisogno. Poi
something
che
more.
noi andiamo a soddisfare questo bisogno o meno
And
è
whether
un'altra
we go and
discussione.
satisfy
Un po' come per dire
this
mangiare
need or
sano
not, it's another
è una necessità, un
thing.
bisogno o è una
Like
scelta?
eating healthy, is it a necessity or is it like a plus?
È un bisogno.
It's a need.
Mangiamo tutti sano?
But do we all
No, vuol
eat
dire che molti di
healthy?
noi non
No,
rispettiamo
it
un
means
bisogno
that
che
many of
abbiamo,
us don't respect a need
portando
that we
tutte le
have,
conseguenze che questo
with all
comporta.
the consequences that this
Il vivere in
takes.
comunità, il
Living in
saper
community,
vedere il
being able
noi, il
to see the
valorizzare
us
il
and to
noi, il
value
far
that
parte
and
di
to be
un
part
noi e
of,
poter
of that and
offrire,
to offer,
dare,
to give, to
ricevere,
receive, to
sostenere,
sustain,
tutto questo è un bisogno,
all of this is a need.
è una necessità
It's a
che tutti
necessity
noi
that we
abbiamo.
all have.
Ed è interessante
And
perché
it's
quando si
interesting
crea
because
questo
when
noi
this
e
us
c'è
is created
un'altra
and there is
persona che fa
another
parte
person
di
that is
quel noi,
part of that
che ha
us
bisogno di un
that
sostegno,
needs
e io aiuto quella
something, some
persona, io sto
sustain,
aiutando il noi,
and I help that person, I am helping the
quello dà
us,
un senso
and that
diverso
gives
perché
a
toglie il
different
senso del
sense
sacrificio.
because it takes away the sense of sacrifice.
Il senso del sacrificio viene quando è un individuo con
The
un altro
sense of
individuo, e io,
sacrifice
io, io quindi
comes when
combatto
one individual is with the
tempo,
other, and there is like a feeling
ma
of
c'è
wasting
qualcosa che
time,
vale di più.
but there
Per
is
questo
something that is
processo
worth
c'è
more.
qualcosa che
And
devo
in this
dire.
process, there is something that I must also
Perché
say.
funzioni.
In order for it to work,
Adesso ti cerco di
how can I
dire.
say? I try to look for a nice way.
Ehm, funziona dal momento in cui ognuno di noi,
It works
da parte,
from
cominciando da
the
noi
moment
stessi,
where we
ci
ourselves
mettiamo a disposizione del noi. E
are
non
put ourselves at
quando
the service of the
diciamo,
us, and
io
not
poi
when
intanto io ci
ah
sono per
I
quello
am
che
there
ho
for
dato
everyone,
come
but
stagione.
first the others need to be there for me.
Sì, la famiglia va bene, ma
Yes, the
poi se
family is
devo fare
fine,
fare i
but then
sacrifici
I am the
devo
one
farli
making sacrifice for
dall'alto,
everyone here, and the family is not looking at me.
la comunità e
The
questo e
community and
quell'altro.
this and
Però
that.
parte prima di tutto da
So it
ognuno di noi,
starts
perché
first
questa
of
è la
all
parte in cui
from
noi possiamo
each one of us, and that's the
di
part that we
saper
can
valorizzare il noi.
take,
Perché
being
la
able
cosa
to value the
fondamentale,
us.
quando io
Because the
posso
beautiful thing is that when I am able to see the
non solo
us,
vedere la
I'm able to
comunità
see the
di
community, the
cui
family,
vogliamo,
let's call it
quello che
how
io
we
faccio
want.
per il noi,
What I do
lo sto
for the
facendo
us,
anche per
I'm
me.
also
Non
doing
è
it
più un
for
sacrificio,
myself.
non è
It's
più
not a
un compito
sacrifice
delle
anymore. The
vittime,
concept of
passivo.
sacrifice ceases.
Ok? Se io ho il senso di
If I have
sacrificio,
the
vuol
sense
dire
of
che
sacrifice,
c'è
it
una parte
means
che
that there is
manca,
a part of that is missing,
che vuol dire che non c'è
which
questo
means
senso
that
di
there isn't this
appartenenza.
sense of
È
us.
perciò che
And so,
quando avviene veramente
when
quel
it really
senso di
happens, this
appartenenza,
sense of
quel
belonging,
bene comune,
the
quel
the
comune di cui
common
viene tutto il pianeta, ma
common
di quella identità
good
comunitaria, diventa più importante che quello individuale.
of that entity
Quindi quando faccio
becomes
qualcosa
more
per il
important than
noi,
the
lo sto
individual
facendo
good.
anche per me.
And so when I'm
E mi va
doing
nutrito.
something for that,
Quello va
I'm
nel
also
fulcro della
nourishing
vita, va a togliere quel senso di
myself,
inutilità,
and it takes away
quel
that
senso di
sense
non
of
sapere cosa fare.
uselessness, of not knowing what to
Anche
do.
perché,
Also because
aggiungo una cosa
I
brevemente,
add
perché abbiamo
briefly
accennato
one
anche
thing
l'ultima volta,
about which we also talked briefly last time.
noi viviamo in un'epoca
We live
dove,
in a
scusate
time
se lo dico,
where,
i
sorry
problemi
if I
reali
put it
la
like this,
maggioranza di noi non
the
li ha.
real problems majority of us don't have.
Qualcuno mi dirà, dice, ma no, ma come? Non mi
Some
capisco.
will say, ah, look, you don't know.
Guarda, vi posso assicurare
No,
che problemi
I can assure you, like
seri,
serious
la maggioranza di noi,
problems, the majority of us really don't have.
come una frase che ho sentito ieri,
Like
che
a
trovo
sentence
simpatica,
that I
mi ha fatto
heard
riflettere.
yesterday
Se tu
that was
credi che
funny.
sei sempre
If you
troppo
believe that
occupato
you're
per
always too
fare
busy in
qualunque
order to
cosa,
do something
non è vero. Se hai
or
visto
anything,
Game of Thrones
it's
vuol dire
not
che non
true.
sei troppo
If you have
occupato.
seen Game of Thrones, it means that
Se hai
you're not
dedicato
too
6
busy.
genitore della tua
If you have
vita
given
per raccontare
600
robe che non
hours
esistono,
of your life for
no, vuol
for
dire
a
che non
story that
sei
doesn't
troppo
exist, it means
occupato.
that no, you're not too
È un
busy.
mito che ti
It's
sei
a
creato
myth
a te
that you
stesso
created
che
for
non hai tempo.
yourself that you don't have time.
Ok? Similmente a
And
questo,
similarly,
noi creiamo questo
we
mito
create this myth
del essere in qualche modo la
of
vittima,
being somehow the victim,
creiamo questo mito
created
allo
this
stesso
myth
tempo
of
del quanto, no?
how
Che l'importante l'insieme più che importante di noi
that
stessi o viceversa.
that the
E
ensemble is
questo
more
veramente
important than the individual or the other way around.
riflettere un
So
attimo
really to reflect
che quando noi sappiamo
for a
valorizzare
moment that when we are able to
quello
give
deriva
value
anche
to
una
the
riforma
collective, that
stessa
also becomes
della
part of
vita
ourselves and it's beautiful.
e quello dà un senso
And
di
that
essere utili.
gives a sense of
E quello
meaning,
che è molto
of being
faticoso
useful. And what
è che
is
proprio
also
in un'epoca
tiring
dove
is
non
that,
abbiamo problemi,
especially in a time
è
where we
difficile
don't
non
have
avere
problems,
problemi.
it's really difficult to not have
È
problems.
molto faticoso
It's very
non
tiring
aver problemi
to
e
not
non
have
far parte di una
problems and
collettività.
not to belong to a collectiveness.
Cosa faccio della vita?
What do I do with my life?
Come faccio a passare la giornata?
How can I spend my day?
E è molto più difficile
It's
vivere la
much
vita
more
senza
difficult to
problemi
live
senza
life
problemi, eh?
without problems than
Quando
with
noi abbiamo un
problems.
obiettivo
When we
maggiore,
have
quando noi
a bigger
apparteniamo a
goal, when
qualcosa
we
di più
belong to
grande di noi
something that is
stessi,
bigger of
quando
us,
abbiamo una
when
comunità, un
we have a
senso comune,
community, a
a quel
sense
punto
of
non è
community,
più i
at
miei
that point it's
problemi
not
miei,
my
è dedicarmi
problems,
a qualcosa che
but
vale di più di me stesso e questo dà una gioia, dà
is
un
to
senso
dedicate
di
myself to
pienezza che è
something that is bigger
fondamentale per
than
noi.
me and gives a sense of fullness and of joy that is fundamental.
Altrimenti
Otherwise,
diventiamo,
we become,
come posso dire, vuoti.
how can I say, empty.
Altrimenti il nostro obiettivo di vita
Our
diventa risolvere i problemi
The
che ci
goal of our
creiamo, perché dobbiamo
lives
dare un senso alla vita, quindi
becomes
devo risolvere un problema.
resolving the problems we created because
Se avete mai visto qualcuno che si
I don't
fa
know
un
if you've ever
problema da
seen
qualcosa che tu guardi e dici
something,
qual è il problema.
someone like creating a problem out of something, and then you look at that person
L'ho
like,
visto diverse volte.
where is the problem? I've
Se
seen it
io
many
non ho un
times, but
problema
if
da
I don't have a
risolvere,
problem to solve,
cosa sto facendo qui?
what am I doing here?
Che senso ha la vita?
What is the
Non
meaning of
servo.
life? I am useless.
E il peggio
And the
è che
worst
non solo non
is
ho
that not
problemi,
only
ma
I don't have
addirittura sento
problems,
una
but
vuotezza.
inside I feel some emptiness.
Sento paura,
I feel
sento
fear, I feel
tristezza, sento
sadness, I feel
rancore,
rancor,
sento
I
insicurezza,
feel
sento rabbia,
insecurity,
sento ogni
anger.
qualcosa su
If
cui
I don't have
puntare il dito diventa
something
ancora più
to
difficile.
which I can point the finger, then this becomes even more
Quando noi
difficult.
riusciamo a
When
far
we
parte di
manage to be
qualcosa
part
che
of
sorprende
something that
Dio,
is bigger than the I,
gran parte di queste cose
the
le
majority
perdono
of these
l'istanza.
things lose importance.
Ricordando una cosa,
Remembering something, though,
il noi
the
include
us includes the I.
il noi non
The
è il
us is
sostituto
not
dell'io, ma
on
il noi è
substitution of the I, but it's an
un'espansione.
expansion of the I.
Pensiamo in una
So
famiglia,
let's think about a
una
family
famiglia composta di 5 persone,
composed of five
ok?
people, okay?
Se una delle 5 persone non sta
If one
bene,
of the five people is not
ricade sulle altre
well,
4 o no?
does that fall
Sì.
also on the others? Yes.
Quindi se io non sto
So
bene
if I'm
e
not
faccio
well
parte di
and
un
I am
gruppo
part of
familiare di
the
5
of a
persone,
family of five people,
ovviamente quello che
obviously
faccio,
that also
il
falls
mio stato di
on all the
benessere è
others.
importante
So
per
my
il
state of
benessere di
well-being
tutti.
is important for the well-being
Prendersi
of
cura di me è un
everyone.
modo anche per prendere
So
cura
taking care of myself is
degli
also a
altri,
way of taking care of the others,
ma non come una
but
cosa
not
in
as
opposizione,
something in
ma
opposition,
come una parte
but
di cui il noi non esiste senza
but as some
ognuno di
but
noi.
as the fact
Quindi
that
quando prendo cura
the
di me
us
sto
doesn't
prendendo cura di
exist
me.
without each one of us.
Sì?
So when I'm taking
Quando
care
prendo
of
cura, sto
myself,
prendendo
I'm
cura
taking
anche
care of the us,
di me.
and when I'm taking care
Ed è qua che si
of everyone, of the
introduce
others, then I'm also taking care of
che
myself.
sinceramente non ho mai
And
visto in
here
questo modo.
comes
Ho
the
poco
idea,
potuto vedere,
well,
studiare, riflettere. Non posso che arrivare in questa
is not
conclusione
in
ulteriore.
opposition to
Ma l'altruismo è
selfishness, but it's an
un'evoluzione
evolution of
dell'altruismo,
selfishness.
è l'egoismo maturo.
It's basically ripe
Egoismo è quando io
selfishness.
ho questa ossessione all'io e al mio.
Selfishness is when I have this
Io voglio essere
obsession with
felice,
the
io non
I
voglio
and the mine.
soffrire. È
I
l'unica
want
cosa
to
che
be
esiste
happy
tra le
and I
cose.
don't want to suffer, and I'm the
L'altruismo è
only
quando
thing that
questa
exists.
stessa ossessione si
And
espande.
altruism is when this obsession expands and includes the others.
È lo stesso sentimento di
It's
avversione
the
alla
same
felicità verso
feeling
se
of
stessi. È la
attraction to
stessa cosa.
happiness and
Però invece di essere
aversion to suffering,
incluso
but
verso se stessi,
instead of
va a
being
includere
closed
gli
within
altri.
ourselves, it's open to the others.
Nello stesso modo
And
che
so, in the same way,
potremmo dire che nello stesso modo che l'altruismo è uno
that
stato più
altruism
maturo
is a
dell'egoismo,
more ripe,
il
mature
noi è uno
state
stato più
of
maturo dell'io.
selfishness, the us is a more mature state of the I.
E c'è bisogno di nutrire questo io,
And there
di
is the
prenderci
need
cura. E uno dei
to
modi per fare questo è
nourish, to take care
condividere,
of the us. And one way to do that is by
condividendo cose belle,
sharing
condividendo
beautiful
cose
things,
difficili,
sharing difficult things,
stando insieme,
being together,
guardandosi negli occhi,
looking at each other in the
mangiando
eyes,
insieme,
eating together,
facendo diverse cose,
doing
stando
different things,
insieme,
being together,
condividendo
and
gli
just
spazi,
sharing
scambiando,
spaces,
dando, ricevendo, vedendosi,
exchanging,
ascoltando,
looking at each other,
aprendosi uno
hearing,
dall'altro.
opening up to each other.
E abbiamo
And we
bisogno
need
di questo.
this.
Ok? Per questo
For this,
cerchiamo
we
dentro
try,
nell'ambito in cui ognuno di noi si trova a
each one
cercare
of
di
us
dare valore a questo
in
noi,
our own
trascendere
context,
dall'io al noi.
to transcend from the I to the us.
Questo noi può essere
This us can
cominciare da una
be
coppia, che è la
starting
parte più qui
from
più
a couple,
vero,
which is like
un po' più
most
rinchiuso, però è già un passo.
bit more closed version of
Lo stesso
the
noi
us,
ci
where there is
segue e
me
poi ci
and there is
segue il
also
noi.
you, and then there
E
is
sapere
us,
valorizzare il
and we can
noi in
value the
questo
us,
ambito
and then this us
espande.
can
Il problema
expand.
è quando il noi include
When
solo
the
due, noi è
us
tantissimo.
is only with two, it's not really
Più sono gli esseri che fanno parte del
sustainable.
noi,
The more
più le
beings are
dinamiche
part of the us, the
all'interno
more
del
the
noi.
dynamics allow for a dynamic,
Che
for a
per
balance.
quello che se noi vediamo anche le famiglie di pochi decenni fa,
Also, we can
magari
see
non
like the
non parliamo
families
dell'Italia, parliamo dell'Italia,
some like 10,
famiglie
20
che
years
c'erano
ago.
i
Here in
nonni, la
Italy, there
nonna,
would
il
be like
zio, la
the
zia, il
grandparents,
fratello, il
the
cugino,
uncles, the cousin, and
quella quindicina di persone
like
c'erano
15
nonni, papà.
people that will easily
Quando
be
uno
there.
tornava dal
When one
lavoro
will come back from
era
work,
stanco, si doveva sfogare, era sempre con la stessa persona?
and one
No.
would be like wanting to complain, that person wouldn't be always with the same person. It would change, you know.
Poi a un certo punto che non ti reggo più o qualcuno
Then I
muore.
can't stand you anymore. Okay, I
Quindi
can
quello
tell that to someone.
le dinamiche è un po' come le energie hanno bisogno di avere luoghi
It's
per cui
like
poter anche
energies also need places where they can flow to, and tensions can uh, puff off to some places.
Benissimo da una parte, poco sostenibile da un'altra.
And so this
E con questo io non voglio dire che sia contrario
version that we have of
all'ecologico,
us
eccetera, eccetera. Credo che sia
that is like two hearts and a hut,
però
it's not
funziona,
really
si sostiene meglio quando fa parte
sustainable so
di
much.
qualcosa
It's more easy to sustain when it's part
addirittura al di là
of a more broad us, which is also beyond the children.
quindi più riusciamo ad
And so the more
ampliare
that we
questo
can
senso di
widen this sense of us,
meglio stiamo.
the better we feel at the end.
Questo è qualcosa che dobbiamo però metterlo in pratica.
But this is
Dobbiamo
something that we need to
cominciare
put in
a
practice,
rivedere, perché così
that
come
we
abbiamo
need to
parlato prima
revisit,
del
because
fatto
the same way that
essere di
as we talked
fretta
about before,
è un'abitudine
being
da
a,
fare gli
that being in
stessi,
a hurry is
questo
a habit that needs to
individualismo
be revisited. Also,
diventa
this
difficile.
individualism is a habit that needs to be revisited.
Mi ricordo una volta, io non ero presente
I
in questa
remember
riunione,
once
me l'hanno
I
raccontato
wasn't there in the moment, but
Lama
they told
Gangchen,
me
era
that
un
Lama
gruppo
Gangchen
relativamente piccolo, era una ventina di
was
persone, stavano facendo un
quite
viaggio
quite
nei luoghi
small.
sacri in Cina,
They were
tantissimi luoghi sacri buddhisti in Cina,
they were on a
e
sacred
avevano
journey in
invitato
China,
una guida.
sacred pilgrimage, and they had a guide.
In quel contesto lì
In
ci
that
voleva una guida
context, you
formale,
needed a
una
formal
turistica,
guide,
che era
touristic,
molto rigida questa
which
cosa.
was very strict.
E a un certo
And at a
punto,
certain point,
prima di tutto, la guida disse
first of
così:
all, the guide
ricordatevi
told
qua che
everyone,
non
remember
esiste
that
l'io,
here we
esiste il
don't have
gruppo.
the individual, we have the group.
Poi un giorno, no, era un classico era chiedere
And the
dove volete
classic
andare,
was
da qui,
asking,
di
where
qua,
do you
di
want to
qua, di
go?
là.
Here
Tutti
first
dicevano
or
no, di
there?
qua, alla fine era quello che aveva detto, era il gruppo, era quello, si faceva.
And then he
Però
would always
il
do
fatto è
what the
che
guide said.
noi abbiamo spesso la
But
sensazione
we
che
often have the feeling that
quello che il comune,
what
il
is the
gruppo
common, the
dice, va
group,
contro l'individuo.
is against the individual,
Ma è fatto di individui.
is made of
Quando io faccio
individuals.
parte di
When I'm
questo,
part of
sostengo
that and
questo,
I
fa bene
sustain
anche a
that,
me.
it
Non so se
also
mi spiego.
it's also good for me. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well.
Perciò io vi invito a
And so
cercare
I
di
reflect and see
quali sono
what are
i contesti dove noi
the
viviamo
contexts where we have an, us,
e riuscire piano piano a
and
espandere, a
to be
dare
able to
valore a
expand that
questo
and to give value to
quindi
that
condividere aspetti e se noi
and to
facciamo
share
fatica a
aspects.
trovarli
If we
dobbiamo andare a
struggle to
condividere
find them,
qualcosa,
then we need to share more
condividere
things,
spazi,
share
condividere
spaces,
passioni,
share
condividere
passions,
idee, condividere
ideas,
momenti ed è
moments,
nella
and it's in
condivisione
the
che si
sharing
crea
that we
questo unione,
create this
questa
union,
intimità,
this intimacy,
sia nel condividere cose
both in
piacevoli, ma anche nel
sharing
condividere cose
pleasurable things
difficili,
but also difficult things,
nel cercare di risolverle insieme, nell'aiutarsi uno
in
all'altro,
trying
è
to
qualcosa di
solve them together,
bellissimo.
in helping each other. It's something beautiful.
Qual è la sensazione che abbiamo
What is
quando
the
aiutiamo un
feeling that we
altro?
have when we manage to help someone?
Piacevole o spiacevole?
Is it pleasurable or not
Piacevole.
pleasurable?
E perché quando siamo in coda e c'è qualcuno che è di fretta non vogliamo
Uh,
dare il posto?
but why, when we are in a queue and we are in a hurry, we don't want to
E in
give up
questo
our
caso è meglio
place?
dare il posto, no?
So, talking in a
Perché
selfish way,
qualche
it's
minuto in
better
più
to
non
give
ti
up your
senti bene.
place. You wait a few minutes more, but at least you feel good.
Anche nelle immagini idealizzate di voler fare
Also,
la brava persona.
in the idealized image of wanting to be a good person.
Però il punto è,
So,
ripeto,
but the point is, I
sono
repeat,
abitudini
it's just
e
habits, and
possiamo
we can
piano piano
slowly
creare delle abitudini
create
diverse,
different habits,
invertire queste
invert
abitudini.
these habits.
E la cosa più
And
bella è che
the
quando
most
noi
beautiful thing is that when
facciamo uno
we
sforzo
make
concreto per
a concrete
cambiare le
effort
nostre
in order to
abitudini,
change our habits,
noi stiamo anche
then we are also
cambiando la
changing
cultura
the
in cui
culture in which
viviamo.
we live in.
Perché quelli che verranno
Because
dopo di me
those that will come
lo
after
accetteranno
me
come
will
eredità,
receive as a heritage my culture,
così come io ho
the
ricevuto
same
la
way that I
cultura di quelli che
received
c'erano
the
prima di me.
culture of the ones that were before me.
E la cultura
And so the
italiana non
Italian
esiste senza
culture
la cultura
doesn't
individuale
exist
di ogni
without the
italiano.
individual culture of each Italian.
Quindi quando io
And
cambio
so when
il
I
mio modo
change
di
my
vivere, di
way
agire in un
of
modo sano,
living,
quando io vivo in un modo
of
sano,
acting, and
in modo
change it in a
intelligente,
same
sto
way,
naturalmente
then I'm
facendo
naturally
parte di una cultura sana.
taking part
Ed è una cosa
sane culture and of something that I leave to the others.
Noi andiamo oltre noi stessi.
So we go beyond ourselves.
Perciò
And
volevo oggi
so
proprio mettere
today
enfasi
I
su
really
questo
want to put
aspetto,
emphasis
dove
on
si
this
infatti
aspect
di
that we are made of habits.
e diverse
And
abitudini che noi abbiamo,
different
noi non
habits
ci
that we have,
fermiamo neanche per osservarle,
we
perché noi
don't even
crediamo di
stop
essere
to observe them
vittime
because we believe that we
di
are
un
victims
sistema,
of a system
quando siamo noi
when
stessi alla
we
fine ad applicarlo.
eventually are the ones that apply it.
E la cosa bella è
And the
che
beautiful
noi
thing is
abbiamo
that we
tutto il
have
potere,
all the
la
power, the
forza, la
strength, the
capacità
capacity
di invertirlo,
to invert
di
that
farlo diversamente.
and
Non ci
to do
vuole
it
molto,
differently.
ci vuole la determinazione di
We
fare
need
diversamente
the
certe cose.
determination to do some things
Quello fa la
differently.
differenza.
That makes a difference.
Ok? Quindi,
And so,
anche sull'ultima cosa, su questo,
just one last thing on
quanto è
this.
bello poter fidarsi di
How
qualcun altro.
beautiful is it is to be able to trust someone else,
Quanto è bello poter dar fiducia
to give
quando
trust
qualcuno si affida a
when
noi.
someone trusts you.
No? E questo sentimento che si
And
crea
this
fra due
feeling that is
persone
created
quando c'è uno
between two
scambio di
people
fiducia.
when there is an exchange of trust.
E quanto è brutto quando
And,
manca questa fiducia.
how ugly is it? It is when this trust
Io ho già
is
visto
not there.
tantissimi casi.
I've already seen
Io
many
ho avuto
cases like
l'esperienza,
this.
come ho detto prima, con la costruzione del tempio,
Like,
la bellezza
for
di vedere
example,
quando, no?
in the
Si guarda
construction of
negli
the
occhi,
temple,
si
the
dà la mano,
experience
si
of
prende un impegno
looking
e
at
poi
each
si
other's in the eyes,
ci fa
shaking the
fiducia
hand,
che questo scambio
and
riuscirà,
taking
che ci sarà.
an
E
agreement, and
quanto è
there is
faticoso
mutual
e quanto è
trust.
brutto quando
And now,
si cerca di fare uno scambio
tiring
però non c'è
it
fiducia.
is when you try to make an
E
exchange,
dobbiamo
but
prima
there
o
is
poi
no trust.
firmare
And so we have
contratti
to
e dobbiamo
sign
mettere questo
contracts, we have
no,
to
quel cartello di qua e quello di là.
put warnings on
Però
this
poi
and
ci
that,
perde
and there is
fiducia
that magic of trust
e si perde.
that it's lost.
Ed è qualcosa che è
And it's
veramente
something that it's
bello
really
invece, no?
beautiful when
Questa
it's
cosa di
there.
potersi guardare, potersi dire ok,
That aspect
io
of being
posso
able to
affidare
look at each
a te
other. Okay,
questa cosa piuttosto che quell'altra,
I can trust
dove
you.
c'è anche nelle piccole cose.
But also in the
È una
small things.
cosa veramente benissima quando questo
And when this happens,
viene
it's really
coltivato,
beautiful, and we need
alimentato in ogni aspetto.
to nourish it
Ok?
in every aspect.
Questo è tutto per oggi.
So
Io vi ringrazio.
this is
Facciamo le nostre
all for
vedute
today.
finali.
I thank you, and now we do the final dedications.
Jetsun alame kutse rapten chi namkar chinle chokchur gepa da losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsela tatu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama da dralme chiki pela longche ching sada lamge yente rabzone Dorje change kopa nyur toba sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin Nintsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingilo kuncho sumki ngodrubo tsol kuncho sumki trashisho all'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno. Concederci le loro benedizioni. Possono aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni, sentiero della nostra vita, molti segni di buon auspicio.